But hold on, you're not a colonizer.
I mean, if you look at that Family Matters video, like people keep telling me that's the best track he dropped. That is the most disgusting, tone deaf, culturally disrespectful. It might be ever from Drake, and he's got a lot of things like that. In that video, he's showing off his G-Unit spinner chain. He's showing off his Pharrell chain that he bought, his Tupac chain that he bought. Like, dude, that is like straight colonizer behavior. Like that, he's looking like Christopher Columbus in that video.
Can I kill him? Let me kill him. The term colonizer, okay, refers to individuals or groups who establish control over a region, exploiting it and its people, often through settlement and domination. It carries connotations of imperialism, exploitation, and oppression. So, definition of colonizer, it has at least 4 factors, right? Historical context. Colonizers are historically associated with European powers that colonized various parts of the world, subjugated indigenous peoples and exploiting their resources. So, number 2, we got control and domination. Colonizers establish control over regions and their people, often through force and coercion. Next, we have exploitation. Colonizers exploit the land and resources of the colonized areas for their own benefit, often to the detriment of the native people. And that's critical when it comes to understanding what exploitation is. It must be to the benefit of one person and specifically to the detriment of the other person. The other person can't be benefiting off this at all. 4th one is settlement, right? Colonizers often settle and colonize regions, bringing their own culture and displacing and suppressing the native culture. So, I mean, right off the bat, you should understand you're already in troubled waters, right? Okay? Does he fit this definition? Does Drake fit it? Well, Drake, historical context, Drake is a contemporary artist who does not represent a European power or any historical colonization force, right? Control and domination. Drake does not exert control or domination over any region or people in the way that historical colonizers did. Exploitation. While he is successful, who benefits from the commercialization of his music, this is a far cry from the exploitation associated with colonization. Drake's music career involves mutual benefits and with collaborators, producers, and communities rather than a unilateral exploitation. Now, remember I said for exploitation it has to be unilateral, but it's not unilateral. Right? It's not unilateral. Why? Because Drake tends to have a broader appeal, which brings people into the Black culture and to embrace it who wouldn't have before. So he acts as a gateway for new people to come in and appreciate Black American culture. Okay, so you don't have that. Now, settlement, Drake does not engage in settling or displacing populations. His influence is cultural and commercial rather than territorial. So that's impossible, okay? Based on this definition of a colonizer, Drake does not fit this description. The accusation that he is a colonizer seems to be a metaphorical or hyperbolic use of the term, likely aimed at critiquing his success and influence in the way that some might feel overshadow or appropriate aspects of Black culture. However, this use of the word colonizer is more rhetorical than literal and does not align with the historical or traditional meaning of the term. So then why is it being used? You agree it's not colonization. Let's try culture vulture. Let's try to frame Drake as a culture vulture and see what happens, okay? So the definition of a culture vulture is, number 1, adoption for profit. Culture vultures adopt elements of another culture primarily to benefit themselves, often commercially. Number 2, lack of genuine connection. They lack a genuine connection or respect for the culture they are borrowing from, right? Number 3, superficial engagement. Their engagement with the culture is often superficial, focusing on the visible or trendy aspects rather than the deeper understanding. Right? Number 4, exploitation. They exploit culture elements without contributing or supporting the original community. Okay? Does Drake fit these definitions? Well, let's look at adoption for profit, right? Drake's music and persona draw heavily from various elements of Black culture, hip-hop, and Caribbean influences. His success is partly built on these elements, right? Let's look at lack of genuine connection. Drake is biracial, with a Black father who has roots in Memphis music scene, and he grew up in Toronto, a cultural diverse city with significant Caribbean influence. His connection to the culture is part of his identity and upbringing, suggesting a genuine connection rather than a mere appropriation, right? Because his father is Black. It's not appropriation. He has a connection to it and a reason to be influenced by it. He's a man, so you're influenced by your father, right? You identify with your father. So that whole disingenuous thing falls to pieces, okay? Let's look at superficial engagement. Drake's engagement with Black and Caribbean culture is not superficial. He has consistently incorporated these elements into his music style and collaboration, often highlighting and promoting artists from these communities. That is, Drake has promoted lots of artists from the Black community, where most of his big hits, which are features with two people, they're making bread off it. They're making money off it too. That means it's a mutual benefit. It's not exploitation, okay? Okay. He involved his charitable acts, collaborations with other artists, and promotion of lesser-known talents. While Drake benefits commercially from his music, he also gives back to the community he draws from. His charitable acts, like you see in God's Plan, or once he simply just paid a woman's mortgage in his audience. It was a Black woman who the tickets costed too much, and so he decided to pay her entire mortgage. Okay, and you also see this with artists like Mulatto, where they have to have this kind of God's Plan video to prevent the Black people from turning on them for being biracial. Okay. Drake does not fit the definition of a culture vulture when considering his genuine connection to the culture he draws from, his deep and consistent engagement with these cultures, and his efforts to give back and support communities involved. While his commercial success is undeniable, it is also clear that he respects and promotes the culture he is associated with, making the term culture vulture an inaccurate description of his relationship with these cultural elements. And as I said, my argument is to show that all this is excuses to try to get around the fact that it's a racial bias. I'm Hybrid Vigor, and if you'd like to see more takedowns of Kendra's, subscribe to this channel, because we're going to be doing that for a little while.